He came back from retirement for one reason: to headline the most historic UFC event of all time. But just when the stage was set, Dana White said no. Jon Jones, the greatest fighter to ever step inside Octagon, had his eyes locked on the White House fight card. It was supposed to be his triumphant return. Instead, it turned into a cold, brutal rejection. So why would Dana shut down the biggest name in UFC history? And what does this mean for Jon's legacy and the future of UFC? Let's break it all down. After years of chaos, controversy, and physical destruction, Jon Jones shocked the world when he announced his retirement. Fans were split. Some called it the end of an era. Others saw it as a much-needed exit. But then, just 2 weeks later, he flipped the script. Jon Jones was back. And not for just any fight. What pulled him out of retirement wasn't money, legacy, or revenge. It was the White House. In a jaw-dropping announcement, President Donald Trump revealed plans to host a UFC event right on the White House lawn for America's 250th birthday in 2026. That's all it took. Jones immediately re-entered the fight world, laser-focused on headlining what could be the most iconic MMA event in history. But what didn't he know? Dana White wasn't even thinking about putting him on the card. And the reason why might just crush everything Jon was planning. To the outside world, Jon Jones' return looked like a moment of destiny. The greatest of all time. The biggest stage ever. A chance to rewrite his legacy in front of the world. But behind closed doors, Dana White had already made up his mind. And it wasn't what Jon or anyone else expected. At the UFC 318 post-fight press conference, Dana didn't mince words. It's not even about him winning the belt, he said. I just can't risk putting him in big positions, especially the White House card. Let that sink in. Jon Jones, the man who dominated generations of fighters, isn't being sidelined for his skills. He's being benched for his past. Dana made it crystal clear. The White House event is too big, too public, and too historic to gamble on someone unpredictable, no matter how talented they are. And for Jon Jones, that rejection hits harder than any punch he's ever taken in the cage. But what exactly is Dana afraid of? That answer lies in the wreckage of Jones's controversial career. When Dana White talks about risk, he's not exaggerating. Because with Jon Jones, the past speaks louder than the stats. It all started back in 2012 when UFC 151 was set to showcase Jones defending his title. But then Dan Henderson got injured. UFC scrambled to keep the event alive, offering Chael Sonnen as a last-minute replacement. Jones refused. Just like that, the entire card was canceled. It was the first time in UFC history that a full event got shut down because of a champion's decision. But that was just the beginning. In 2015, Jones was scheduled to fight Anthony "Rumble" Johnson in a headline showdown at UFC 87. Instead, he got into a hit-and-run accident and fled the scene. He was stripped of his title and suspended indefinitely. Dana was furious, and fans, they were left wondering if Jon would ever step inside the octagon again. Then came the infamous UFC 200 saga. Jones was set for a blockbuster rematch with Daniel Cormier, but just days before the fight, a drug test popped positive. Once again, he was pulled from the main event, and the chaos repeated itself. Even more recently, Jon tore his pectoral muscle while prepping for a fight with Stipe Miocic. That delay, it lasted a full year. One setback after another. Injuries, suspensions, scandals. Jon Jones wasn't just unpredictable. He was unreliable. And in Dana's eyes, that's a deal breaker, especially for a card as massive as the White House. But what makes this event so different from everything else, that is what we explore next. This isn't not just another UFC event. It's not Vegas, not Madison Square Garden, not even the Sphere. This is the White House. For the first time in history, the most powerful political stage in the world is becoming a battleground for the UFC. It's part of America's 250th birthday celebration, a once-in-a-lifetime spectacle that goes way beyond sports. There will be cameras, Global media, politicians, celebrities, all eyes on the octagon. One mistake, one controversy. And it's not just the UFC's name on the line, it's the country's. That is why Dana White isn't taking any chances. This card must be airtight, clean, unshakable. And in Dana's words, Jon Jones is just too volatile to bet the house on. It's not about drama anymore, it's about legacy. And for Dana, trust matters more than headlines. But this isn't just about one event, this is about a deeper truth behind how Dana runs the UFC. And that truth, we will uncover it next. For Dana White, the UFC isn't just about putting on fights. It's about control, stability, and trust. And no matter how legendary Jon Jones is, he's never been the kind of fighter you can count on when the pressure peaks. Dana's been burned too many times. Last-minute cancellations, media embarrassments, headlines that have nothing to do with the fighting game. Sure, Jon's a generational talent, maybe even the GOAT. But talent means nothing when unpredictability keeps crashing into the party. The White House card is Dana's dream stage. It is not just a fight night. It's a legacy move. Something that cements the UFC as a true global powerhouse, and for that, he needs fighters who show up, stay clean, and don't create chaos off the mat. That's why Dana made the cold call. It wasn't personal. It wasn't even about skill. It was about reliability. And in Dana's world, that's everything. But with Jon out of the picture, who's in? That's the question still floating in the air. With Jon Jones out of the conversation, the UFC White House card is now a massive blank slate. And Dana White, he's not rushing into anything. The fact he's gone full radio silence on matchmaking, no names, no fights, no main event talk. That's Dana's stance. Because he knows how fast the fight game changes, the landscape will change so much by next 4th of July. Dana said, and he's right. New stars will rise. Belts will change hands. Someone we're barely talking about today could headline the most historic card of all time. And that's exactly how Dana likes it, keeping his cards close, letting the story build itself. But one thing's for sure, he wants fighters who are locked in, scandal-free, and ready to deliver under the biggest spotlight the UFC has ever seen. And that leaves a giant question hanging over the sport. If Jon Jones won't be the face of UFC at the White House, then who will? Up next, the final word on Jon's legacy and what this nub really means. Jon Jones should have been the perfect ending to the UFC's greatest chapter. The undefeated icon, the comeback king, the headliner of history, but instead, he's watching from the sidelines, not because he's lost his skills, but because he's lost trust. For years, Jones dominated everyone they put in front of him, but outside the cage, it was always chaos, always a question mark. And now, when the UFC is preparing for its most polished, public, and patriotic event ever, chaos is the one thing they can't afford. Dana White made his choice. He chose certainty over legacy, stability over superstardom, and in doing that, he may have closed the door on Jon Jones' final moment of greatness. The GOAT, left out of history. So now we ask, is this how Jon Jones' story ends, powerful, but forgotten at the final hour? Or will he find one last shot at redemption somewhere else? Because in the UFC, nothing stays the same for long. In the game, it's always one fight away from rewriting everything.